Steve Ray, exit 425. It's where we live. Today I'm out here on the western boundary of Clarington, enjoying the sights and sounds of Town Line Road. Today, second part of my conversation with Sami Elhajjeh, our local councillor for exit 425. Today we talk about how to access our local politicians and whether there's any effort being made to have open houses or anything like that for informal conversations with our politicians. Talk about whether anyone's actually talked to an MP or MPP about reducing the residential option for the Curtis waterfront. Talk about hopes and dreams for the last year of his rookie term as local councillor for Exit 425, and of course, information on how you can reach out to be in touch with our local councillor. All this, maybe more, on Exit 425. So, I wonder if the sunsets are better out here. Today's guest at Exit 425.
In the main corridor of Exit 425.
Local politicians to connect with families.
What are some unique challenges?
Thanks very much, Steve, for having me.
Exit 425. It's where we live. Sami, welcome to part 2 of our interview, and I appreciate you taking the time to do all of this. And we talked through a bunch of different things, some of it topical, some of it procedural. And so looking forward to some more on the waterfront, particularly in the second part of our interview. Thanks again for meeting me here at Exit 425.
Yeah, always a pleasure, Steve. And again, for those who did not listen to part 1, thank you again for the time and for the opportunity and for you doing the podcast. It's a great site to get information from and talk about local community needs, right?
Because we're overrun with media in Clarington, so excuse me. Those were genuine coughs. Okay. Sami, you and council took measures to double down on making it clear that Clarington does not want an anaerobic digester, but there are other things that could be allowed. In the draft plan, it says, in addition, alternative and renewable energy generation, cogeneration facilities, and alternative fuels manufacturing are permitted on lands designated general industrial within a fully enclosed building, and it goes on and on and on, and specifies some conditions and that sort of thing. Are these leads on other emitting industry that's ready to move on to that site?
No, not at all. The secondary plan does not include proposals for specific industries or facilities. Like I mentioned in part 1, the secondary plan, it's a land use framework that guides how future development proposals will be reviewed, right? So any future applications would have to go through a review process, including public consultation to ensure they align with that secondary plan. As a member of this current council who has a public health background, specifically in environmental public health, I'm opposed to any increase at the energy from waste facility, which may or may not be proposed. It was discussed, but there's nothing that has been proposed as of yet. Especially with potential housing at the waterfront. I've made this clear. I've made this very clear prior to becoming councillor and throughout my term as well. And with respect to the anaerobic digester, I know that was, I guess, a contentious point that was mentioned numerous times at council. And that's why we brought in a motion a few weeks ago to ensure that Clarington still remains an unwilling host to the anaerobic digester, and to include that in the waterfront draft as well.
On a procedural ad hoc sort of question, is that something that you knew you had the votes for when you went into that, or was that it wasn't a blind motion? Like you knew you had the votes to support that?
Well, considering that Clarington was previously an unwilling host, it was just to reiterate our position. I can go into the actual specifics, but it would probably put your listeners to sleep because it's very procedural. But again, it was just to reinforce our position specifically on that draft plan.
Okay. Um, in an ideal world where the town had the vision to buy the land adjacent to Darlington Provincial Park and the waterfront years ago, or had the money and creativity to do it now, what is better on that site beside Darlington Park and the Lake Ontario shoreline? 2,500 housing units and stores, or a Sunnybrook or Lakeview Park style park, or even an extended Darlington Provincial Park? And I'm thinking of where Curtis and Clarington is in 20 to 30 years with double our current population.
Yeah, so there's a Christmas term I always like to say. It's if ifs and buts were candy and nuts, we'd all have a Merry Christmas, right? So in an ideal world, sure, it would have been amazing to secure that whole swath of land, but unfortunately, the reality is the vast majority of the Curtis waterfront is privately owned, and acquiring that land outright right now would require a massive investment from Clarington, which would fall on the taxpayers, then and now if we wanted to, right? New developments, as we know, play a significant role. As sorry, I'll backtrack. New developments, similar to your question on like growth paying growth. So new developments play a significant role in acquiring and funding parks, public spaces, essential infrastructure, and other community amenities, which we all know enhance quality of life. And the development of the proposed residential part of this neighborhood within the secondary draft would also support the creation of the Curtis Waterfront Park, along with the necessary transportation and service improvements in the area. So just to be clear, this is private land, and without housing, there's no 39-acre waterfront park, no improved access, nothing. Um, and unfortunately, I wasn't a member of council before, and it's tough to dwell on the past because we always have to look to the future to make the positive changes. We have to work with what we have in front of us to move things forward. Especially for future and the future growth as well. I think this council is in fact getting things accomplished. Whether it's services, programming, or infrastructure to support that mandated growth. If we wanted to purchase that land right now, we're looking at upwards of 60 to like 120 million. And where are we going to get that? We would have to raise taxes. We would have to get that from residents, or find really, 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 really creative ways of getting it. Through the land dedication from the development at this location, we'd be able to give the community the 39 acres of public parkland for a premier waterfront, which is, as I mentioned previously, much larger than the Bowmanville Zoo site. With enhanced trails, great views of Lake Ontario, and other aspects as well. The green space, the mixed use area with shops and cafes. I implore everyone. I implore everyone to have a look at the Clarington official site. There is a hot map which goes into further detail. A hot map, like basically you can hover your mouse over and it shows greater detail. You can see all that in greater detail and see what the draft plan shows.
In my video that I referenced in part one that talks about my 8.5 minutes that I would have required in front of council, I make a suggestion. I'll leave that mystery to you and cliffhanger as to just what that suggestion is. It's a bit of a tongue-in-cheek suggestion, but still creative nonetheless. And there's a recognition, certainly by me, that council doesn't have the money to do this, right? And part of that is because of the handcuffing that we've received from the provincial government over different things. And so this is why I'm wanting to ask the question. I've asked it several times, and I implored the mayor on May 12th, like, why isn't our mayor pounding down the door of the premier if this is really the right thing to do? And so my question is, has anyone from council ever spoken to our MPP, who happens to be the minister responsible for the park, who happens to be handing out millions of dollars from the various funds that they have access to purchase land to protect it, or the premier about seeking a residential free option for this land and appropriate compensation for the landowner, which I've always been wanting. I mean, I have feedback from two offices as far back as 2022, and Minister Piccini, if it's not on tape, it certainly is part of our discussion around the interview, that suggested our own MPPs knew nothing about these plans, which I don't really believe. But so, has anyone ever talked to, from council, ever talked to the MPP or premier about this?
So well, we both know that the draft plan has been worked on since 2019. So I can't. I'm not going to speak on behalf of Minister McCarthy or is it Minister Piccini? Minister Piccini.
It still is,
Um,
yeah.
yeah, it still is. I can't speak to whether previous counselors in my position did or did not. But given some of the stuff, I know that's flying on social media, I don't think that my counterparts did. Otherwise, they would have said something. Like I said, I can't speak to whether Todd knew about this because he's a fairly new MPP as well. Like I think you would almost have to reach out to the previous MPP Lindsay Park, who's previously in his position. But I also think it's wild. I know we've talked on the side, but I think it's wildly inappropriate for local municipal governments to lobby the province to purchase private land. There's already a mistrust of government actions. So, imagine if this had been done, and there'd probably be accusations flying that we lobbied the provincial government to overpay for the land, and not to mention other posts on, misuse of taxpayer resources. It's unfortunate that the municipality did not own the land, but I know that there were similar. This example was kind of similar to the Uxbridge example, right? But we have to keep in mind that the Uxbridge example, sorry, the municipality owned the land, so it was an easy transfer to make it a provincial park or a large park, right? It's also important to note that under the current provincial government, Clarington has been assigned a housing target, to support Ontario's broader efforts to address the housing crisis. And while we can't stop growth from happening, we can certainly be strategic about it. Where it happens and what comes out of it as well. The proximity of this area to the future Curtis GO station makes it a a logical location for new housing, as it will be connected to a more robust um, regional transit network, right? So from that perspective, it's important to have a look at and to think on.
So, to your knowledge, nobody's been talking to the premier or the MPP about this.
To my knowledge, no.
Okay. Um, okay. So that really disappoints me, but I appreciate your answer, because it's the first answer I've ever had on this one. So,
But that's again,
um,
that's to my knowledge. I don't
of
know if
course, of
yeah.
course, yep. But no one else has answered. No one else has said yes. And as you suggested with the social media that's on there about this, nobody has said anything about that. And if they had, they probably would have, right? Um, so I appreciate that frankness. That's good. Does anyone that you are aware of provide for open houses or meet and greets that would allow residents to speak to you in person in their locale on a regular basis?
Yeah, it's. I think it's something that we're working on. I know I've suggested it, and I probably will do something in the coming year to come. I have something coming up in the next few months to a year, and I'm always engaging. People know me that they can reach out, they can call me, they can knock on my door, they can talk to me at the gym. I'm attending a ton of events, whether it's supporting local businesses or PICs. I was just at the Farewell Creek PIC secondary plan, and yeah, I'm always looking to connect with constituents. Um, Jokingly, they call me the Willy Woo of the West. And it's not because of my rugged good looks. I think it's just because I'm social, and I talk to anybody, and I try to help out as best I can, which is a compliment, I guess, because Willie's very similar. Um, a great example of this, is a meeting we had, you, me, and the mayor with regards to women's hockey. Right, you offered suggestions and advice, and another example is Councillor Wu and Councillor Zwart, speaking to the MPPs about a new school in Newcastle. So I personally, I meet with my constituents a few days a week with respect to all matters, complaints, suggestions, site visits, and even ideas to make our community better. I like to work behind the scenes on events. I have a few events coming up in the next coming months, which will be announced shortly. But very similar to last year, it's the Curtis the concerts at the complex, at the Curtis Community Complex. So that'll be announced shortly, and I've been Granville and I have been working behind the scenes to get that going again. Yeah, there's always things to connect on. My priority is always to connect with residents, to inform and engage with all the wonderful, awesome things we have in our community. I'm always at the street festivals, like the historic Bowmanville festivals. There's a Canada Day celebration. There was one last year, and it was awesome. There was like 15 minutes of fireworks, which is great. Um, yeah. So and for all up to date information, I try to be pretty active on social media. So you can visit me on my social media page on Facebook, Sami Elhajjeh Sami Elhajjeh, Clarington Local Councillor, Ward 1 on Facebook, and you'll get up to date with all events and such.
Awesome. Sami, we're about 1.5 years away from another municipal election and effectively about a year left in your current term. What's one big thing that you'd like to see completely wrapped up by October 2026?
Yeah, so yeah, I can definitely talk about that, but we also have to mention the past 3 years as well, and what this council has accomplished, right? We've accomplished a ton, as I previously mentioned in part one. South Bowmanville Rec Complex, the Zoolands, the Clarington Waterfront, the new fire training center. We hired firefighters to improve our emergency responses. Refrigerated outdoor ice pads. We made significant headway on the Bowmanville Hospital, which I mentioned they're at the RFP stage, with a tender coming in 2026, which will basically be a brand new hospital, right? The general physician program, adding more local physicians to the community. What else? As I mentioned previously, the snow clearing services, which we created efficiencies on and improved. And we've done an incredible job of dealing with federal responsibilities like the cell service, on top of other provincial issues like the densities. Not even to mention the parks and the modernization of parks. Um, there'll be expansions to the Curtis Community Complex in the near future. So I'm proud to have made those suggestions and brought those ideas to council. I'm also super proud to have helped bring back the Curtis Santa Claus Parade, which I know many people were interested in and missed. We Granville and I brought in a very successful Curtis tree lighting, the Curtis concerts at the park, which will happen 3 times this year, and also improving and spearheading the 30-kilometer school zones, or sorry, 30-kilometer an hour reduction in speeds in school zones, right? Um, and there's still tons to do. We have almost 2 years left, and um, you know, uh, we need to address more. We need to do more, and we need to make the lives of our residents you know, better, you know, through better engagement and so on. But at the same time, our residents need those investments in our community, and I intend to continue to support that high level of service and programming and infrastructure to not only support my residents in Ward One, but also the amazing residents throughout Clarington. Uh, what specifically I'm working on, I would love to see and am pushing for an expansion to South Curtis, which will include 2 additional ice pads. And I've been pushing this a while now behind the scenes, and will continue to advocate this for this over the next year. And also working with partners to locate and acquire space for multi-field activities like Rib Fest, like concerts, or other field sports like soccer, football, and lacrosse. But yeah, we have a growing community, and we need to be able to be proactive and prepare for the future. Right? It's about improving the lives of our residents through the services and the services that we have here in Clarington, whether it's programming, recreational infrastructure, parks, and fields. I know some decisions won't make everyone happy, but we're all human, and we're all doing our best to make our community a better place to live, work, play, and raise a family. So I think that's an important message to get across, is that we're all human, and we're trying our best.
Just as a note, I know a good place where you could fit cricket pitches, rugby pitches, lacrosse fields, all those things, you know, and maybe the premier can help. Sami, thank you for meeting me here at Exit 425. How can people reach out to you? You mentioned a couple times, even in part two, but maybe tell us again just for clarity.
Yeah, for sure. For those who aren't listening and who didn't listen to part one, everyone knows me. I pride myself on customer service and being available. So you can call me at 905-623-3379, or email me at selhajjeh, E as in Echo, Lhajj, E as in Echo, H at clarington.net. Or you can reach out to me through my counselor Facebook page, Sami Elhajjeh, Clarington Local Councillor Ward 1. I use as I mentioned, I use the Facebook page to post important, factual, accurate information. So please don't hesitate to reach out anytime. I'm easily accessible. As I mentioned in part one, also, since this is June 10th and the end of the school year is upon us, which is the unofficial start of the summer, I guess. So for everyone listening, enjoy your summer, be safe, and don't hesitate to ever reach out or even say hello if you have any questions or concerns.
That's awesome. We'll get that title for Ward 1 counselor changed eventually to local counselor Exit 425.
Exactly.
And we'll let the villages up north join in as well. So there you go. Sami, thank you again for taking the time tonight to do this, to record this, and to keep us updated about procedures and events and your thoughts and opinions about different things. So I greatly appreciate it.
No worries. And I enjoy being on your show, and I appreciate all the work you do. Thank you.
Thank you.